Here's a quote from Charles Lamb. He is no lawyer who cannot take two sides. So now I'm going to bring this back to the intellectual part for a little bit, right? Because we live in very much an intellectual space. We operate in an intellectual space, and it's very important. I don't want to downplay this at all, of course, and say, well, whatever your intellect tells you is not as important. It is important, right? And we need to discuss this. So law school, I think, is a great example because it's a formal arena where student word magicians, whether they see it that way or not, these are word magicians in law school. They train and sharpen their craft. While the liberal arts colleges are often prerequisite study, right, for future litigators, it's very common for very high-level attorneys to have a liberal arts background, as we discussed in the previous section. The skills of grammar, logic, and rhetoric are truly tested in law colleges, and they're tested in everyday life to some degree. While most other non-law degree programs in college must endure some scrutiny from professors and sometimes peers, such as in the sciences, of course, the law college is unique in that it is expected that the student become effective at arguing for both sides. Both sides. You have to see both sides of the argument. There is some great value in this, right? Now, this surely contributes to the distrust and reputation of lawyers talking from both sides of their mouth, right? Not to mention directly profiting from the tragic circumstances of people's lives. Now, all of that aside, the practice of how the attorneys are trained, this practice is a very valuable exercise, especially for the seeker, right? After all, law is one of the rare arenas of study where a successful student must be able to use his faculties of reason in order to construct the appearance of truth for an audience through his words, and then be able to tear that down again and reconstruct it all over from the opposite side. This is high-level word magic. This also helps you suss out your own thinking, organize your own thoughts, and it helps you build your internal bullshit detector, both within yourself and with others. Okay? Not only do liberal arts and law colleges have specialized training in logic and rhetoric, but the practical experience of participating on the debate team, for example, is an integral part of a liberal arts education. Participation in debate gives practical experience and training in the art of rhetoric and persuasion. Gaining competence and confidence in public speaking makes for effective arguments. Again, only through challenges, right? Either challenging yourself or having your classmates or your friends challenge you in a healthy and constructive way, right? Only through these challenges can you, the student or the seeker, experience or gain the experience and the confidence needed to comfortably speak in front of an audience in a persuasive manner. Okay? Protecting oneself from and assessing the validity of one's words does not require a practice in debate or public speaking, but it certainly teaches one to look at one's own arguments more objectively, right? So you should be open to being challenged. And when someone points out something that you have that feeling, ooh, that may not be right, own that. Learn from it. Move beyond it. Become better, right? Here's an example of of this happening to Bill Clinton. So Bill Clinton's initial foray into the national spotlight was an abysmal failure. A lot of people don't know this, or they don't remember this. This was a long time ago too, but this is a great this is a great example, as evidenced in his first national speech to the National Democratic Convention in 1988. It was just a complete and utter humiliating failure for Bill Clinton. Okay, but how did he handle it? How did he respond? Right, that's the most important point here. During the speech, of course, Clinton was ponderous, boring, mechanical. He seemed unaffected by the audience, which collectively tuned him out. Now, if he was unaffected, that means he basically had a plan and he was sticking to it, and he wasn't opening to the moment, opening to, feeding off the crowd and really responding and being present. Right? If he were being present, he may have adjusted his approach on the spot, but he didn't. Right? He just kept plodding through. So whatever the speech that he wrote, right, and the way he imagined delivering it and how it would go, he just kept plodding through that expectation, even though the reality of the moment was completely different. He wasn't being present, right? Bill Clinton completely failed to connect with the audience. And he got his biggest applause by the crowd when he said, in closing, right, towards the end of his speech, right? Now, this could have been, it was humiliating. It was a blow to the ego for Bill Clinton, right? But how did he respond? He went on to appear on the Johnny Carson show to make light of his failed speech. I realize most of my audience has no idea who Johnny Carson was, but he was one of the big popular night show hosts. He was probably the most popular. But he went on to embrace his failure, right? And he, of course, which shows a lot of maturity. It shows that he looked at himself objectively, and he had this understanding, right, that true confidence isn't merely just an appearance, but it's being competent. And competent means that you are fully engaged with the moment, right? It's to be competent and confident is to be tuned in to yourself and tuned in to others, right? So subsequent speeches that Clinton gave on national TV were far more improved from his previous failure. He incorporated many new nonverbal cues into his bag of tricks, right? As well as learning how to connect with the audience energetically, to be with them in the moment, right? So the failure he experienced on national TV was just what he needed to become a better orator. Clinton succeeded by embracing rivalry and self-reflection to elevate his word magic to a very high level. In a future part, we're going to discuss Bill Clinton and where his word magic went horribly off the rails to the point where it was just comical. Okay, so we're going to look at that as well, because he's just such a great example of someone who was willing to look at himself objectively, right, without an attachment per se, and then improve his speaking. Now, of course, my audience, and myself included, I'm not an aspiring politician. I'm not a political person. But I think this is a great example of failure, seeing yourself in a new way and embracing a new perspective, right? And embracing what others tell you. In this case, the audience is telling him, you're boring, boo, we're not interested, right? And then responding to that. So up to this point, we have only looked at confidence from the aspect of the intellect for the most part. Now we're going to really look, I've talked a little bit about why real confidence is in the body, but now we're really going I'll show you some examples. We'll talk about some things, some practices that you can involve yourself in. Okay? Of course, confidence is not the only, confidence doesn't just exist in the intellect, right? Nor will confidence based solely on the intellect sustain you in the long run. It certainly won't, right? So then what about confidence from the perspective of the soul or the higher self? What about truly knowing our inner Shiva, as it were, right? Often we must start from the intellect and work our way backward. This is primarily due to our conditioning and the society that we live in, right? Also, I have to use my intellect to write these episodes, to think about, to communicate to you, right? So it's very important that we start there, but we can work backwards from there, right? This is how my presentation is structured, essentially, is to work backwards from the intellect until such time that we can tune into the awareness that lives, that exists behind our intellect, behind words, behind language, behind cultural conditioning. There's a place behind that I'm trying to get to. Only you can access that yourself, for yourself, right? Just as I can access it for myself, but I cannot translate that into words and put it inside of you, right? That's a barrier that we have, that you have to do this for yourself, right? This is why I saved the best for last in this part of the series. Confidence isn't really just happening on the intellectual level, but rather on a much deeper and foundational plane of existence. Okay? Confidence is really knowing, right? But not knowing in a superficial sense, but the deeper form of knowing is understanding. So really, confidence is an understanding. And when I say understanding, remember, the whole point of this presentation, the whole point of this series is to get behind the world of words, or get underneath the world of language and words and ideas and intellect, and to understand, to be underneath it, to be at the very foundation of what it means, right? So that's where we're going next. So of all the practices I am aware of for gaining tremendous levels of confidence through your entire soul, your entire body, your spirit, right? One of the most powerful and transformative methods I have practiced myself is eye gazing. Okay? You can see this couple here. These are just, now when I say couple, this is not a couple on a romantic level, but this is an exercise where this woman on the left appears to have quite some experience in eye gazing. Okay. And you can see this young man on the right, he looks a little nervous. You can see, look at her body language too. Look at how she's upright. She's leaning slightly forward. She's got a neutral to positive kind of, looks like she has a little bit of a smile, but she's locked in to this young man, and they're eye gazing. Their eyes, they're just looking in deeply into each other's eyes. Now look at the young man on the right. He looks like his body positioning, he looks like he's moving back a little bit. He's less engaged. He has kind of a nervous smile. He's you can tell he's the newbie here, right? He's just learning this practice. And this woman on the left knows she's been eye gazing for quite a while. She's in touch with her Shiva, right? She's comfortable exchanging this energy with him. She's comfortable with her own energy and exchanging energy with others through eye gazing. Okay. Now, I will be the first to tell you, initially this practice feels incredibly awkward, right? But it's only because beginners invariably engage their intellect, right? You engage your problem-solving intellect to this exercise where it has no place. It has no place in eye gazing, right? You're thinking, oh gosh, this is weird. This is awkward. What should I do? Do we have a connection? Should we be dating? Should I ask her for her phone number after this? Like there's all this preposterous stuff going on. And it has no place. You just have to open yourself into the moment, right? And feel everything. It's okay to think what you're thinking, by the way. I'm not saying you need to just not think, but eventually it'll drop off. Eventually you'll still have thoughts that come up, right? But you're not going to be holding on to them as tightly after some practice of eye gazing, right? This is the type of practice where you can walk away from feeling recharged, feeling energized, and feeling more confident in yourself and in your own power, in your own energy, right? So even after a short amount of time, a dedicated practitioner of eye gazing will be able to let go of a lot of the chatter. It'll still come up, but you won't be so attached to it, right? You won't be attached to this chatter from the intellect. And then you can begin to enter new territory of your own inner dimensions, right? You can enter some really interesting places energetically. Exploring this new metaphysical terrain affords the seeker a chance to tune into the divine essence of themselves and others, discovering what confidence of the spirit really is, right? If you're confident all the way through to your spirit, that's true confidence. Another great way to build confidence in the body, and remember, confidence mostly happens in the body. Okay? It's yes, you can know a lot of things, right? But if you're okay with knowing that you don't know everything, that happens in the body. It doesn't happen in the intellect. So a great way to build confidence in the body for men and women alike is through dancing, any kind of dancing. Partners dancing is especially valuable. Any kind of dance, either individual or with a partner, is a great way to learn the basics. Okay. A great way to learn the basics, I should say, is by finding a contra dance group in your area. Contra dancing is... it appears very complex, and then you do it for a few times and you realize, oh, this is actually pretty simple, and it's the same structure. Contra dance, I would say, is more popular on the East Coast, but you can find contra dance groups around the entire country. There's contra dance groups in the United Kingdom. There's some in Europe. There's Canada, North America, United States. I don't know if there's any in Mexico. But it's a very great way to start, right? It's common for contra dancers to attend their events alone, by the way. So if you're thinking, oh, I don't have a partner to go with, it's very, very common for people to show up alone. Maybe your other half isn't crazy about dancing. Maybe you're single, right? But often couples who dance together do attend as well. But it's expected that you will change partners every song in American contra dance, at least. Not so much in the United Kingdom, but in the United States, you'll always change partners for every song. And it's a very welcoming atmosphere for new people. And the basic moves are easy to do, right? If you can walk, you can contra dance. They usually have a lesson 30 minutes before the dance. So you don't just go into it, no, I don't know what I'm doing. And during the dance, you just dance with experienced people. They help you through the steps. It's very simple, especially after your first one or two contra dances. Anyway, there's traditionally a live band and a caller who also announce the moves to the dancers, so you can keep track of what you're doing. Right? They show you the moves, they name them, and then the caller will actually call out the moves, so you know, oh, I have to do this now and that. Right? That is a type of dancing that starts in the intellect, right? And as you get better, your understanding moves into the body, right? And your confidence builds as a result, right? And experienced contra dancers will often pair up with new people in order to help them along, right? Now, dancing with your partner improves nonverbal communication immensely. Huge, absolutely huge. You can tell who dancers are because they're just confident in their body. They're confident moving in their body, right? So dancing is just complete. I just cannot speak highly enough of any kind of dance. Another great way to build confidence in all areas of your life is to participate in some form of martial arts. Okay? This is especially helpful for men. In our modern society, men lack real challenges or ceremonies with other men which represent true and meaningful rites of passage, right? A true, meaningful, and rite of passage for men doesn't have to be a physical act. It doesn't have to be in martial arts. It can be many different things, right? But without a rite of passage, you've heard about this rite of passage in tribes, and tribal societies have a rite of passage for men, and there's a very important reason for that, right? Because in our modern society, without a rite of passage, many men just fail to grow out of they fail to leave the immature masculine. They fail to grow properly into their mature masculine, okay? Because it takes a mature man to tell the immature man, you know what, you're one of us now, right? And that has to happen through some kind of rite of passage, some sort of ceremony. Could be a men's group, could be martial arts, could be fishing with your dad. It could be, many different things, right? So without this, many men fail to grow, and we're left with a society where there's no real rite of passage, or there's no outlets for rites of passage. Thankfully, there are many outlets. The problem is most people aren't talking about the importance of these outlets for men to come into their mature masculine, right? So our culture desperately needs more outlets for the mature masculine to flourish, or at least we need more recognition, and we need to talk about these outlets and promote these outlets more for men, right? So the martial arts community is a great way to accomplish this. At least I can say that in my personal experience. A good martial arts school will do wonders for both men and women alike, though, right? This isn't just for men, obviously. It is simultaneously humbling, and it's also a confidence builder, okay? The benefits of which will extend far beyond the techniques of combat. They will reach into every aspect of your life. I know a lot of outsiders will think, oh, it's just about fighting, and that's all it is, right? But it's just so much more. The first day I walked into the traditional Japanese-style judo school, I didn't know what to expect. I was bringing the old to the new. My expectations were somewhere in the area of, I'm going to get injured. Someone's going to, people enjoy hurting each other here, that kind of thing. I knew that wasn't true intellectually, maybe, but I felt like, maybe some old stuff comes up from high school or something, and you think, gosh, someone's going to bully me or something, Could be, bullying is so taboo in martial arts. It couldn't be further from the truth. The experience was amazing, and I'm forever grateful for having opened myself to that possibility, right? So that is the end of part 12. And another practice I should mention is this young lady is fire gazing, right? Or candle gazing. That's another great way. And you can start. You don't want to just jump from chilling in your room, watching YouTube to eye gazing. Maybe that's not the best. Maybe that's kind of a too large of a gap to jump over. You could try candle gazing, right? Just gaze at a candle for as long as you can, uninterrupted, right? 5 minutes at first, 10 minutes. Make it a daily practice. Just practice focusing and going into, not making it's not an intellectual exercise, right? Again, thoughts will come up, and that's okay. You're not supposed to be a blank slate anyway. You have an intellect for a reason. Thoughts will come up, but just go into the moment, right? Open yourself to this moment and see what comes out. You will surprise yourself. Okay, if you enjoy what I'm doing, please subscribe, hit that like button, and I always love to see your comments or questions or ideas. Always happy to discuss things with you guys. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks.